Welcome to Your Story Doesn't End Here, the mental health podcast for military and veterans. I'm your host, Rachel, and my mission with this podcast is to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, bring awareness to mental health issues, and provide value and solutions to help make life more abundant.
And being able to know that you're a human outside of your uniform. Sometimes they can make you feel the opposite, that you're inhumane because you wear a uniform and you don't have a right to have feelings or to cry, and I think that was the first time where I was able to do that.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode. Today's guest, Jasmine, is a U.S. Navy veteran. She served as a CS. She's originally from New York. She absolutely loves to dance, and she is the proud owner of Diva Dance Jacksonville. Jasmine, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm just so thankful for the opportunity to be able to share my story. It's such a great story, and hopefully I can reach out to those who've either been in a similar situation or overcame. So I'm just so thankful to be able to share that with everyone. My name is Jasmine. I am a United States Navy veteran. And I'm sharing my story because I got hurt on deployment on my first command. And it was a tough situation. It was a situation where I had to medically be retired and no longer be part of the Navy. But there's always a blessing in disguise for many things that happen to us, not necessarily knowing why it's happening, but the aftermath after that. So I think that's so important that we tend to realize that of, making lemons into lemonade for the most part. But I was stationed on a ship in 2008. It was me coming right out of A school, straight into the ship for deployment. We were ready to go for 6 months. It was a bittersweet situation. I was a single mother at the time. Saying goodbye to my son was the hardest thing. He was 12 at the time. And I think any parent can relate when we're saying goodbye to our loved ones. It's definitely difficult, but, being out there to be part of something bigger than yourself was just a really great opportunity. And knowing that, my family was so supportive of that. So in the Navy, I was a CS, which is a culinary specialist. I was a cook. I was excited. I love to cook and make people happy. It was like another way of having a little fun on the ship and being able to spice some things up. That was pretty exciting. We got underway for the first month or so. We went to so many different places. Oh my God, I think our first stop was the Middle East, which was really awesome. So beautiful out there. Initially for my story, what happened was we were cleaning up. After we served dinner, it's time to clean up, sanitize everything. And usually for CSs, what we do is we have a pitcher and we actually boil hot water in, I believe they're called kettles. It's been a while, having a little brain fart a little bit, but we have kettles and we fill them up with boiling hot water just so we can sanitize the floor and mop. Initially in our galley, which is called the kitchen. In the galley, there's two separate sides. We have one side where we do most of the cooking and serving and the pots and the deep fryer. And we have the other side, which is technically like the salad bar. We prepare the salads, the fruits, the desserts. And it is kind of like a two-way entrance, if you will. So initially we were all cleaning up, getting ready to go. We're all just like tired, smelly, like ready to go to our showers and just, rest for the night. So we were cleaning up. I was on the salad bar at the time. That was kind of where I was designated to go. While I was kind of sweeping up, talking to some friends, I was walking through here. There was another sailor. He's also a CS. He was cleaning up. We were allowed to wear headphones at the time. Initially, it was only supposed to be one ear. This individual had two rushing, ready to kind of get out of there as always. As I was walking, because initially on the two sides of the kitchen, they eventually meet. So it's kind of parallel, and they eventually come together. I was just telling, we usually have people called FSAs, which is kind of like the people that help the cooks out, clean up, and be our little helpers, I guess. And I was walking through, just kind of turning around and telling people what to do and where to go to put things away. As I was turning to come back towards the end of that, I guess the end of that side of the room, the individual was kind of rushing, I guess really running, I guess, for the most part, and hit me with the pitcher of boiling hot water that hit me on the side of my head, and spilled all over. At that time, at that moment, my eye swelled shut. I grabbed my face and I felt like I was on fire. I was like, and then I started screaming, and I remember just bumping into things, and I was like, I can't see. Then I was just feeling extremely like I was burning. I ended up taking off my shirt at the time, because we had a black shirt and black pants on with a belt. I ended up taking off my shirt, and I was in the galley in my bra, and I just felt everything just burning. It was just spilled all on my right side of my face, down on my neck, my shoulder, and my lower back. I still kept trying to move around, and I was just screaming. One of the Marines, because we were on a ship where the Marines were on board with us, and we transport them for their missions. So we kind of LSD. I hope I said that right, because my memory's been pretty fog for the most part. But yeah, and the Marine grabbed me, brought me to the sink, started splashing cold water on my face, just kind of putting me right in there by the faucet. I remember touching my face, and there was just some skin coming off. After that, I don't remember much, kind of blacked out. I do remember at some point, like in and out of one of the CSs were carrying me. I know that they took me out, and I remember just someone holding me, and he was running across the galley to take me to medical. I got to medical, was just flashbacks in and out, not really remembering what happened. I remember one of the doctors were just, I think he had like a flashlight, like moving around, because my eyes swelled shut, so I wasn't able. I saw a little bit on this side, not much on that. I know there were, remember, scissors cutting open my shirt, and I'm sorry. I remember seeing my chief outside the medical office. He looked like he was just sitting in the bench staring at me. And then I don't remember much after that. I remember waking up in ICU. Still wasn't able to open up my eye or anything. Their concern was, me having losing my eyesight at the time. And moving on from that, like I said, don't remember much after that. I remember laying down, and in ICU, they were giving me some heavy meds because I was just in so much pain from my face. I burned some part of my hair from the back here. It never really grew back. Right there on my right side of my face, there's kind of some, at the time, there was no hair there, kind of just came off with it, which is why I wear bangs today, just to kind of, fix that a little bit. But I remember just being in a lot of pain. Eventually my eye did open up. I don't know how long that took, or for whatever the case may be. I was grateful enough that I didn't lose my eyesight. It was just swollen from what happened. And my face was peeling. It was swelled up pretty bad. My lips were slanted to the side. They were getting in contact to the hospital in Land. Oh, wow. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. Land something. Can't really remember much. Landstuhl, I think it was. There's a hospital in Germany that most people, when they get hurt, go there. So I got medevaced there. Wasn't quite sure. Couldn't really eat or take down anything. I don't know what was going on. My face, they wanted to make sure everything was fine and no surgery, but I was just in excruciating pain in my stomach for some reason. I don't know if it was the medication or my body just going through things. I can have a little crumb, and I was in so much pain where they had to put me to sleep. My body was just going through the motions. We ended up medevacing me out to Germany to seek more help and to see what was going on. I think that was probably the hardest thing I've been through. I think to go through that was really hard, being that I was straight out of A school, straight out of training school, getting on to deployment, just constantly nonstop. And it was hard not being able to see your friends or your family, can call, but, it was really hard. And then having people to see you like that was probably the hardest thing. Felt like I looked like the monster. My face was just all crooked and swollen for a while, and me peeling. I think it really opened up the eyes to safety when it comes to some things that sometimes if you don't pay attention or, follow the rules, you could jeopardize lives. And I'm just really grateful that you couldn't really tell on my face. I have those scars and a bald spot, and ended up getting severely burned on my lower back. Looks like a tran stamp, to be honest with you. When that boiling hot water hit me, it looks like the water from the back was just sitting there cooking my skin from the belt. So that got burnt the most. But it was really hard just to kind of go through that and be on meds. And I know some sailors would laugh. I was on top bunk and I was in so much pain. So be able to climb up that thing it was hard too, because I'm short enough. I'm already 4'11". So I went to Germany for a month and a half. They did a lot of testing on my stomach, my eyesight, my face. I think the hardest thing of all of that was mental health. The nightmares. I had so many nightmares. I went there with my chief. They have you assign someone there, and they house you there. There's like 2 beds, and they have the USO there. And I think I probably cried so hard just seeing your face distraught. I think as a woman was probably really hard. That's what we have. So, hoping that it didn't do any permanent damage, and just being sick and having doctors do so many tests on you and see what's wrong, what's causing you pain, why aren't you eating in the last month or so, and, having some blurriness on my right side of my eye. It was a lot of things going on, and doctors trying to figure it out and not being able to give you a concrete answer, I think was the hardest thing. And being away from everything, you feel like a failure. What could have done different? Is this it? Is this it for my career in the Navy? Going in and saying, I'm going to be 20 years and I'm going to retire, and knowing that, there's some speed bumps there, and knowing that this might be a situation where you're not going to be able to stay in. I think all that was happening all at once was just so overwhelming, and meeting other people who were injured, and I think mental health was probably the hardest thing for me, because it's one of those things in the military where you just brush it off. Well, you're fine. It's not like you lost a limb or your boots on the ground. You're just a cook. Like, who cares? We all get burned. And I think that people don't realize that, no, it still hurts and we still scarred. And it's like, burn your face off and see how you feel about that, and I think that was hard when, you're in pain, something's wrong, and they're saying, well, there's nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, no, there's something wrong. I haven't been able to eat in weeks, going on a month. And I think what kept me together in Germany, going through all these tests and feeling like a failure, was the US. So I'm a music person. I am a dancer. I love to dance. I love music. I play instruments. I play the piano, drums, and guitar. It's therapeutic for me. There's a USO there, and they have a room with instruments in it. And I was able to go there majority of the times and just play piano, and just kind of really cry when I play, or a place where I could just let it out and, find healing and being able to talk about it. I think that was being able to talk about it without crying. And I think that was therapeutic for me, to keep me sane from all these tests and medications and always putting you to sleep and all that good stuff, I guess, for the most part. Once they made a decision, they were like, okay, well, you're going to have to go back home, and I think that was the hardest thing for me, because I didn't want to go back home. I wanted to go back to the ship. I didn't want that, and I remember when the ship found out that they were going to send me home, they fought it, and they fought it so bad. They were saying, oh, no, nothing's wrong with her. She's fine. You can send her back, and, she'll be fine here. And, and I think that's the hardest thing with the military, is that they always want to make it seem like nothing's a big deal and put you back and say, well, and lie to you. I remember there was an officer there in the medical team saying, if you go back home, it's over. You're not going to be able to support your son. You're not going to be able to become a third class. At the time, I was a seaman. You're not going to be able to be a third class. And, you're not going to be able to do anything with yourself. You need to really think that. And I think I was already in a vulnerable place as is. And to hear that, especially me being so new in the Navy and thinking like, oh my God, this officer is telling me this. This is probably what maybe I should go back. And being able to sit there and be like, I don't know what to do. I was scared. I was like, I got hurt. I'm still recovering. My face is still peeling. And, my stomach hasn't been the same. And being able to say, well, what do I do? What do I do? At the time I was 28. I joined the military later on in life, and I didn't want to go back to the life that I had before. And I didn't want to let down my son, and say like, mom tried to do her best to finish and she couldn't, and it's like, God, I couldn't even make it as a cook, and that was really hard. And the officer at the time, I said, well, just lie and say you're fine, you're better, and come back to the ship. We need you. We can't, we're already low staff. And they did everything in their power to get me back. And I remember talking to a therapist there at the time and letting them know what was going on. And he said, I don't think you're in a mental state to be doing that. And I think you're not okay. And I think that you should go home. And I said, I don't know what to do. it was like ship tells you one thing, and I didn't know what to do at the time. And I said, I'll go back and I'll just lie and go back and be able to see my son and to say that I finished and I was on restriction. So I ended up lying to the medical team and saying, I'm fine, I'll be okay. And it's gonna be great. It's gonna be all right. And me having to lie and fight so much and thinking that this officer had, my best interests and my commands had the best interests. And that was 100% not the case. They ended up clearing me out and sending me back on the ship. I think we only had like 3 weeks left, and I was like extremely like lim due, which is like limited duty. I couldn't do much. I can only work certain hours of the day. I would have to always be in my rack. I would have to be rested and medicated. And I remember going on that flight back to the ship because we were still in deployment at the time. I felt like I made a big mistake, but me being so new into the Navy, I said, you know what, maybe this is going to be good for me. Maybe they're going to help me. And me coming back to the ship was probably the biggest mistake I probably ever made. When I got back, and they saw my limited duty, my command at the time was saying, we're not going to follow this shit. This is ridiculous. You can get ahead and get in there. I've had so many conversations with my chain of command, and like, you're sleeping too much, or you're drowsy, or you're not to be able to do this, or, I see you, out on the mess decks, which is where you sit to eat your food, and you need to be in your bed. You can't talk to anybody. And it was, the medical officer at the time was, saying like, you're strong, you can do this, like, you're going to be okay. And I think going back to the ship, I couldn't help but have so many nightmares of reliving me burning, feeling like my face was still burning. It almost felt like I still can close my eyes and still smell the galley. My nightmares got so deep where I felt like I was there at the moment screaming, and people had to come to my rack and wake me up. Like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And I wasn't okay. And I think the military puts that in your head. Like, don't worry about it. Leave it behind your head. It's okay. It's whatever. We got back from deployment and we got off the ship, and I was able to come home. I had my house built in Jacksonville, Florida. Was coming home to a new house. And when I walked in, I wasn't the same. I was being able to let go and saying like, I made it here. And then there'll be moments where I would have flashbacks of that moment it was just constantly everywhere I go. I would like zone out everywhere I went, when I had coffee or when I'm cleaning. When I got home, I didn't touch my kitchen for like probably 3-4 months. I wasn't able to get into the kitchen, find it within myself to cook or do anything of that nature there. And that was really hard. I had my son at the time. He visited me for the summer because my shared custody with my son's father, and everything had to be microwaved. I couldn't turn anything on. If anything was to happen, it would be from a distance long. Like, I couldn't do it. And I couldn't find the strength to share that with my chain of command or other sailors, because people thought I was a joke. They're probably like, oh, look at her. She looks fine. Like, she's making a big deal out of nothing. Well, she gets to sleep more than I do, like princess or whatever. And no one understood. It was just a constant getting that feedback from my peers, from people around me. And getting that pressure from my chain of command to keep going and to keep doing things and to say that everything's a lie. It's like, not all scars are visible, and they're deep down. I got into a really dark place where, with me not being able to cook, I started to get angry. And as I got angry, I started to let that out on my son. I would break things in my house and start screaming, start getting angry. I was barely sleeping because I was having nightmares. It was almost like I didn't want to sleep because I didn't want to think about it. And I would have flashbacks. It got to the point where I got to a really dark place and it really hurt. And I started to think about suicide. I thought that, you try to put on this face as a woman and try to be tough because you got to prove yourself even more for the sake that we're women. And it's such a male dominant field. And pretending so long and constantly hearing, you're fake or you're this, you never got hurt, it's fine. And hearing that for so long and being able to go home and not being able to cook for your kid. And, dating was really hard. And I had a big ass ball spot. So, it took a hold on me for a long time where I felt really dark and I knew I needed help. So I reached out to the hotline right there in NAS Jax and trying to get some help. And I said that I am feeling suicidal. I don't feel okay and I need help. And if I don't get help, I'm worried for myself and my son. And that's when, they pulled me immediately off the ship. And I met with an individual therapist. I'm not sure. I guess they screen before that you have to see a therapist before you get help. And I did the intake and they deemed me that you should have never came back to the ship. You should have never been there and you need to get help and we need to get you out of there. And I remember breaking down, crying like hysterically and saying like, I need help. I don't know who to trust. I don't know what to do. I'm so lost and I'm trying to be tough. I think every woman tries to really prove themselves or try to be tough. And there's never a time where you can be vulnerable in the military because there's no time for that. And I can understand that, but there has to be a place where we're able to let down and just, be able to say that it's okay to not be okay, I guess. And they pulled me off the ship immediately. Oh, my chain of command was so angry. They called me 1,000 times. They fought for me to come back. I think I forgot what that is called. There's like an officer, the top officer for the food management. I don't know why I'm drawing blank, but sometimes it's hard talking about it. And then I might forget so many things. But even like the biggest officer tried to get me back and say that it was a lie and that they try to help. And everyone turned their back. The medical officer that told me to come back, it's like, no, I don't approve this. She's fine. She needs to stay here. And we're understaffed. And I remember, I would never forget, there was a therapist there and she's a civilian. And I remember crying to her because I think I was assigned to her. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm scared. I need help. And she goes, you're safe and you're going to be okay. They don't tell me how to do my job. I know when someone's faking. I know that, and she said that it's unfortunate that people do that, but, I believe you and I know that you need help and I'm going to help you. And they don't override me. And she goes, you can trust me. And I think once she said, you can trust me, I felt even more vulnerable, even more to let go and say like, okay. And I never went back. And they were able to keep me at the Naval Hospital there. I joined the LIMDU crew, limited duty. And they said, you're going to stay here. And I said, after that, I was like, okay, what's going to happen next? And they said, well, we're going to get you some help. I went to something called IOP, which is individual in-house, I don't know, something therapy. God, I don't remember anything right now. And that is just being able to get therapy full-time all day and be able to help you. And I received that for quite some time. God, I think I got that for like 6 months or 4 months. My timeline's really off. And then it was able to start opening up that wound and be able to talk about it and how I've been doing at home. I wasn't showering. I wasn't getting up. I couldn't do anything. I just felt completely dark and sinister and felt like my life wasn't worth it. And I think therapy helped and hearing others, but I think also it really opens up the wound to deep down of how you felt. And I ended up going full time to like, because there's part-time and like full-time. I think you went to therapy during the day and then you went home for the rest of the day. I felt so vulnerable and I felt with so much going on and me trying to really talk about what happened really put me in such a dark place, ironically. And then they ended up putting me full time where I was going to therapy from 9 to 5 for a couple months and weeks because it was really hard for me. I wasn't being able to get up. I couldn't even make it sometimes. And I think that exposing what you've been through as a woman and being able to talk about it was saying that it gets worse before it gets better, and hearing therapists and giving you ways on how to deal with stress, how to deal with anxiety. I would say I will always forget things and be like, I don't remember. I can't remember things, and I would get angry and I would break things and say, I don't remember anything. I can't obtain any information, and being able to take a deep breath and learning breathing techniques when you're having panic attacks and anxiety. My son would cook something in the microwave and he'll take it out and I'll see smoke coming out of his tenders, and I would just start crying and screaming, saying, oh my God, put it down. Don't touch it. And he would look at me like, Mom, what's wrong with you? I was like, don't talk to me. Just put it down and stay over there. And it was really hard. IOP I got to know a lot of great people. I got to know that you're not the only one. And I think that really helped out enough where it was able to know that you're not alone for your pain and your hurt. After IOP, I ended up meeting with that civilian doctor. And she goes, I'm going to be your therapist and we're going to do therapy and we're going to have exposure therapy. This individual, I probably will never forget her. I think, I tell people that it probably wasn't for her, probably would have killed myself a long time ago. God, I don't know what I would have done without her. She would just listen. And it felt so good to know that with your command and everything that's happening, you're able to walk in. She's like, you could take off your top if you want, be in your t-shirt. You can cry, you can yell, you can scream, and it's okay. And being able to know that you're a human outside of your uniform. Sometimes they can make you feel the opposite, that you're inhumane because you wear a uniform and you don't have a right to have feelings or to cry, and I think that was the first time where I was able to do that. And we did a lot of exposure therapy. There was times where, I broke things. I yelled, I screamed. God, that woman had so much patience, and it was really hard to talk about it and to say, like, I'm not crazy. I would sleep in my home and wake up screaming and thinking I'm still in the galley. I'm still in the boat. I can't stop thinking about it, and they end up medicating you. And it's like, it's a temporary fix. It's not something that you need to be on, because at that time, it's just you're drooling out of the mouth and then you're numb and you don't really feel anything because you're on medication. But if I'm not on medication, I'm crying everywhere and wanting to take my life. So it was such a tornado of emotions and experiences when it came to talking about my pain from deployment, my failure, to say that I'm a failure. I can't make it through, and her trying to do exposure therapy, which we've gotten far. I was able to put stuff in the microwave. That's as far as I was able to get from the year and a half. We were doing therapy, and it got to the point where it's like, I'm sorry, we're going to be able to submit some documents. Because, I think in LIMDU, they give you like 2 sessions to see if you need to renew it. And then if you're not getting better, they're going to have to separate you. And I did everything I possibly could. I went to the chapel. I think chaplains are amazing at NAS Jax. I think that chapel there is just so educational. The RPs do everything to help you out and to remind you of your faith. I'm a very strong Christian woman. So being able to go through that was difficult enough, because you sometimes damn God, like, God, how could this happen? Like, this is all I wanted. I wanted to become something for my son, to say that his mom's done something extraordinary, and to say that I failed him, I failed myself, was probably the hardest thing. I think, we heal physically quick and doctors can fix things, but you're never really the same. And I think I was struggling so much trying to find my worth in the Navy, when they whatsoever don't give you that at all. After a year and a half, they said, we're going to medically separate you and you're unfit to be in the Navy. And that was the hardest thing I've heard. As a single mother, I was always working dead end jobs and making ends meet just to provide for my son. And I joined the military to become something. I had an ex, I was dating a guy at the time, and it was just such a toxic relationship. And, as a single mother, it was like, yeah, bring your son over to my home, and, I'll take care of you. I'll take care of your son, and I'll give you the life you never had, because he came from money. And I was like, yeah, that's great. And within, right around the corner, it was like, hey, I cheated on you. I don't want to be there for you or your son. You need to pack your shit and get out. And it was like, what do I do? 26, 27 years old, not having much going on for yourself. You're like, I didn't have no other choice but the military. I didn't know what else to do. And to know that I left that type of life behind, where I had to give my son to my son's father, which is a toxic person. Not as toxic as he is today, but it's a struggling relationship. And being able to say, hey, hold on to my son while I join the military and just get, my house, we'll be able to have something, because I didn't want to be in a shelter with my son. I didn't have anything, any money, any job. This guy was like, stay home. I'll take care of you and everything. And, it could be all taken away so quick. And it almost like I failed that relationship then I joined the Navy thinking that will be hope, and I failed there too. And it kind of felt like if I can't make it in the Navy, I can't make it anywhere. Like, where else could I make it? And that was really hard. It's probably the hardest time of my life. I ended up getting medically separated. They gave me a date and say, hey, you're going to go out and figure it out. I didn't know what to do at the time. I was only an E4, not even. So barely got any money. I had a home, had a mortgage I had to pay. It was the time I was paying child support and paying a mortgage and paying my car. And I wasn't making anything and I was still broken. It's not like they give you therapy after that. It's you're in the VA's hands at that point, unless you have money to pay for therapy. And it was kind of like military spits you out. Like, okay, well, here you go and figure it out. Ended up attending a TAPS class, which is the class that they give you before getting out. And that gave me anxiety because it's like so much information to know that what you're going to do. And you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, it just hits you. Like, I never got a break. It was like boot camp, A school, deployment, getting hurt, then, Germany, then surgery, then coming back and then getting separated, then therapy. It was all like 100 miles per hour. It was like, what's, all within that period. And when I got out in December, I was like, I got to do something. I don't know what I'm going to do. I need to support myself. I ended up applying for Mayo Clinic at the time. And I was able to get a job there. And I haven't worked in so long because I was so used to keeping myself busy. Because when you stay still, your thoughts get the best of you. Your mind gets the best of you. And, you sit there and think about negativity. So for me, I couldn't accept the situation. So I had to keep myself busy and not be able to think about it. I was able to luckily get hired at Mayo Clinic. And I was working at a department there at the time. It was like an 8 to 6 job behind the desk working referrals. And that was the easiest job you could possibly do. And I was so grateful to work at one of the best hospitals in the world. And I just wasn't mentally checking in. I was making mistakes, not as much as I made it seem like it was, but it was just make a mistake and being so hard on myself and saying, God, fuck, excuse my language, but like, darn, like I can't get this right. I can't remember this. It was just constantly getting upset over situations that I put myself in. I never gave myself time to heal and to get over it, even during therapy. And you almost felt like everywhere you try to put yourself in, you can't do things right. You kind of like be like negative Betty. And they kept telling me, just slow down. You don't have to make mistakes, just slow down. And I could have never slowed down. I just couldn't. I couldn't allow myself to slow down. And it was hard because working 8 to 6 and then having my son. And then I started to get overwhelmed. I started to get like, the anxiety just went through the roof. Like, oh my God, I got to be there at 8. So I got to leave at 6:30 and then I have to make breakfast. Everything was just nonstop. Like, oh my God. And then taking my medication at the time, sometimes I'll forget and sometimes I didn't. Sometimes it helped. Sometimes I'm just sitting there like a rock, and it got so overwhelming with everything else that I had going on personally, trying to date someone and trying to manage being the mother that my son needs me to be and being able to say that I'm a successful woman. And it ended up becoming too much for me and I couldn't handle it. And I didn't vocalize it because I was so used to being told, like, don't talk about what bothers you. Don't talk about what makes you weak, because that what makes you weak, and keep having that in your mind. And I was going through so many emotions, getting out at 6 and then getting home like 7 o'clock, and then it's like, I got to make dinner. I got to cook. I was always having anxiety and playing it off so no one will see, so no one will notice. And I think what ended up happening at the time where I just had to medically check out, and I reached out to my supervisor at the time and being honest and saying, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. I couldn't. It almost felt like I was getting back into my dark place. And it's so easy for some people to play around with the name, of wanting to hurt yourself or wanting to do something to cause your life to be lost. And I felt that coming back and saying, like, I got out of the Navy and I'm trying to make it into Mayo Clinic and just trying to find validation. And I couldn't find it, couldn't do it. And sitting there at the desk and just doing what I did, which I did pretty well for the most part, but I wasn't really showing what was happening to me and still having those nightmares. And I think at that time, it was just really hitting me, like constantly feeling like a failure. And I think at that point, I was just like, I just can't do it anymore. And I had to check out. At the time, I was dating my boyfriend, my current boyfriend now, and sharing that with him. And he's been with me the whole ride. There was times where I cry to him and say, like, I don't want to live anymore. I can't do it. And he's like, no, you got to stay alive. You got to do this. You got to do it for your son. And it was just a really dark place. And being able to say, well, why can't I just get over it? It happened a long time ago at that time, like it happened already. Why do I care? Why do my mind keeps blowing, and I just couldn't understand why my mind kept focusing on it and being able to get the help I needed. And at the time, my boyfriend said, I think that maybe you should take a break from work a little bit. Maybe we can do something that can really help you with your situation and what your needs are. And we came up with the idea. I was on the couch. It was like 2 a.m, sitting in my home and thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with myself? And I remember watching this commercial on YouTube. 2 a.m. on YouTube can go so many different ways. And I saw this music video of people dancing. I was like, wow, that actually looks pretty cool. I was like, Diva dance, what is that? I ended up looking on my phone and saying, like, wow, this is actually a real place. Like, you can actually do this. And it was a franchise. And I said, maybe this is something I could possibly do. I used to love dancing. Dancing for me was awesome. It was great. It was just another way to have an outlet. I remember talking that over with my boyfriend, and he was like, you know what? I think that'll be great for you. I think it'll be a great support for you. You don't have to worry about being in an office. You don't have to worry about anything. We can do this. I think this will be great for us, not just me, but for us. And we ended up getting into the franchise. We ended up, getting some money together and purchasing the franchise and just starting our dance business here in Jacksonville. And so funny how all the therapy I received, every doctor I saw, I just couldn't find it within myself to be genuinely happy, at least organically. And, when we opened up Diva Dance Jacksonville, I found my outlet. I found my healing. And my healing was telling my story. to others and having other people relate to that, and to express myself through dance moves and being able to be weak and being able to be vulnerable, being able to say, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm not a size 2. I'm not, a typical dancer, and I'm a broken veteran, but I still want to dance. Do you want to dance with me? And my story and my willpower to not take my life and still go brought so many people close to dance through the studio. And I found my outlet, my therapy through them, and through the people that were coming in the door and saying, allowing people to come in and say, it's okay to not be okay. Like, it's okay the way you look. It's okay to cry. Your husband left you. I'm sorry. But within this hour of a dance class, it's going to be okay. People coming in through a divorce, through cancer, mothers wanting to get away from motherhood, and hearing so many different stories and being able to provide a space where I couldn't find that for me. And I wanted to create a space for others to know that I know what that feels like. And I want to be able to provide a place where we can all cry together, where we can talk all together and relate to other people. And that has made our studio so successful. We've been open since we're going on 1 year, since July. We have over 100 members. We have women from all walks of life. We have veterans and active duty people that come in. We offer military discounts because it's so important to let other veterans know that it's okay and that I could relate to them, and that they know someone, at least in person, that's not tied to a command, that is not a contractor or, a civilian. Can't relate to every veteran, but on a level where I know that it's okay to let go. We actually have a sailor that works for us as a hostess. And we talk so much about her command and what she's been through. And she goes, thank you for that. Thank you for telling your story, to know that I'm not alone. And I think that's where God was leading me towards, is to tell my story and to say that I'm not a failure, but to share my story with others, to know that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to feel like you fail, but we're really not failing. And that as women, we need to stick together and to help each other out through everything. And that's what I've been doing with my business. And I've been getting so much help and support, not only from my community, from my relationship. I've learned how to be healthier in my relationship and communicating. Understanding that I've been so blessed to have a man that understands what I've been through, and to allow me to cry, to allow me to be okay. And, hey, your mom's having a moment, to my son, and say, hey, let's go take a walk, and he'll just look at me like, so are you okay? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I'll get dinner started. And then he'll start cooking for me and helping me out, and not more of a reason to shun me for it, but to say, honey, it's okay if you can't be in the kitchen or it affects you. I'll go ahead and make dinner for you. And he's been making dinner for us. And slowly but surely, I've been a little bit in the kitchen. I would say last year was probably the hardest, seeing pasta or anything cook or anything around that's hot. I'm always like, and my boyfriend be like, it's okay. Why don't you wait on that side and I'll let you know when I'm done. Or, hey, I'm about to take this pasta and drain it in the sink. There's about to be a lot of smoke right now. You want to go ahead and take a walk? Or do you want to go ahead and do something else? And I was like, wow, like I didn't need permission to kind of explain myself or anything like that. It was more of like, it's okay. And being able to accept that, and to accept the fact that I know you've been through some things, but it's okay. And we're going to go through it together. And we've gone 2.5 years together already. And He's been with me through therapy, through IOP, excuse me. We were dating, we just met, and I was like, I got hurt. I'm going through some therapy, the mental health, but this is me. And he was just like, well, we're all a little crazy, I guess. It's okay. And I was just like bawling, like, oh my God. And I think it also is a great example of telling your story, and to say that some people do find it okay and they don't think you're weird or a failure. If that you're strong enough to tell your story and to let other people know. And that has helped me so much with my mental health, is acceptance, patience, being around people who are humane, and humble, and being able to start this business from a place that was so dark, and some people would think I'm the most confident person in there. They're like, oh, when you're dancing on that dance floor, when you talk to us, she's like the most confident person I've ever met. And little do they know, I've come from such a dark place. And I think that sharing my story has helped. Ironically, we inspire confidence in our dance studio, and we change lives. And little do they know that they change mine every day when they walk in and hearing their stories, and seeing divas cry and say, like, this is my place of happiness, and I'm going through so much. And there's an individual that's battling cancer right now, a rare one, and trying to raise money to find an answer and some doctors. And she's fighting for her life. And I cannot relate to that moment, but I know how it is to be sick and to know that you don't have many options. And she said, I can't really dance much, but I just want to sit there and watch if I can, because I miss it. She's getting sick. And I said, no, we don't allow bystanders. But what I can do for you is offer you a private class, separate, just you and the instructor, and you can live your best life that way. And she goes, I would absolutely love that. And to think that I provided a space that people are battling their health, not knowing what's going to happen, and knowing that they choose my space for happiness and for peace, it's so heartwarming. It's so heartwarming. It's humbling to know that my experience and my story is helping others open up and be okay with their situation, and to relate to each other and carry each other. Diva Dance Jacksonville is just more than just a dance studio. We're family. We're such a community there. We do different events. We do social events. So we go out for happy hour together. We go to oh my God, we do so any events that are going on. We're like, hey, do you want to come? You want to go? People that's like, I'm new to town. I don't have any friends. I'm like, well, we got a happy hour coming up. Why don't you come with us? Some divas, we had a diva that's like, I've been through a divorce, abusive relationship. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to get up. I can't even make it a class. So I ended up, telling them like, you know what? I think it's more of a reason to come out. And we all show up with her and drag her out and lift her up. And because I know what it feels like to let that darkness take over. And it's like, we can't allow it. We can't allow it. We can't allow it. And helping them is helping me every single day to say that my purpose is there, and to know that I got to be there for them. And, I come from a familiar place where I can help them. If I can do it, you can too. And we can lift each other up. And that's what we do at the studio. That's what I've created. And it's starting to feel like I'm not a failure anymore, that my story is helping others. And my success comes from changing lives every day and providing that space for other individuals. And I'm forever blessed for that.
I think it's so incredibly beautiful hearing how the pieces fall together in someone's story to create the beautiful life that they have after so much adversity and so many tough things, and thinking maybe, maybe that happened to create this life. And it's so hard to think back on all the tough things, but I love what you're doing today. I think that's amazing. And I love that you shared that for all of our listeners in the Jacksonville area that would want to take advantage of something like that, because realistically, all we want is community as human beings. But I think, especially when it comes to military life, we lose that community every time you change commands. Every time a active duty member gets separated, you lose that community, and it can be so hard to find it, especially when you're not around people that can relate. I think that's kind of one of the bigger things. But a couple things in your story that were super, super relatable. I think that, first of all, being a woman in the military, you really lose your sense of identity. But then on top of that, when you get hurt in any capacity, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, you really feel like you have something to prove to the people around you. And you're right, being in a male dominated field, it's so much harder to be a woman, to be not okay, but then also on top of that, having people that don't support you in a command or even medical. I think it's almost psychological what these people are doing. And it's so messed up, because you're right, you go into the military and realistically, doesn't matter what age you are. You could be 18, you could be 30, 35. You're trusting these people that have been in longer than you to give you the right advice, especially in a medical capacity. And to hear someone that is supposed to have your best interest at heart telling you you're okay, you're fine, you must start to question your own sanity when people around you are telling you you're fine. And it can be so damaging. And so, I think that so many people, myself included, can relate to the things that you said and what you went through, maybe not to the exact same capacity, but a little snippet of it, or bits here and there. I think, especially when we're talking to all of our single mothers out there who are in the military or veterans, that feeling of failure or feeling like I didn't finish this. I know for me, I always felt like anytime I faced getting discharged early, whether it was for my best interest or not, there's something in my head that always felt like you'll be a failure if you don't make it to your EAOS. And it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't. But I think that that's kind of the culture that the military's created, but it's because they need the numbers. It's not because they care about you as a human being. It's because, if we lose this person, this billet is empty for the rest of your contract. And especially you being new, if you had left, the billet is empty, I think, for 4 years or however long that is, if I understood that correctly. And so I see why they push for that, but I also think that it's wrong when someone legitimately needs the help and a command is pushing for them to be in a situation where it's no longer safe for them to be there. And so, unfortunately, that's the reality of the military today. And it's so upsetting to me that this is the culture. And so I appreciate that you shared your story. I know that it's not easy to talk about and it's still an emotional topic for you, but I think that the more we talk about these things, the more people can see this is what's truly happening to our service members. It's not okay. And at some point, something needs to be done. Thankfully, you had the help on that mental health side to make sure you're okay. But unfortunately, not everyone does. And I think that's why we see the higher number of suicides and people really not okay. And, at what point do we say enough is enough? That's kind of my thought process behind it. But for you, what do you think would have been more helpful for you at the time when everything you were going through from your command and from the medical staff?
I think what have been helpful is being able to have someone like an advocate. I know they usually have, oh darn, I know I don't know, I'm drawing a blank. I know there's an individual, it's usually like a master chief that you can go to. I know there's a name for that. I know they usually have like an open door policy. It's not coming to me right now, unfortunately. But I know I don't know if do you happen to
Is
know?
it TMC?
Yeah, CMC.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's always like a CMC that you're able to like go to and talk to and everything else. And I think the issue in the military is trust. Does the CMC necessarily, have your best interest? Right. And being able to say, well, yeah, you can always trust me. And I think everyone in the military knows like what we say and what we actually do is very two different things. When we talk about, oh, yeah, I'll do that. And, being able to be by the books, but is it necessarily really by the books? Not really, and I know that's what they're there for. You also have chaplains that you can talk to that's confidential. But I think it's just being able to have an advocate to say comfortably, like, hey, this person is sexually touching me. Hey, this person is verbally abusing me. Or, hey, this master chief is saying if I do something to him, I will be able to get whatever. And being able to say it in a way that is calm enough where we're not getting so much, you know, the aftermath of it, to say, oh, it's okay, we'll take care of it. Then all of a sudden things start happening, or, you start getting some bad stuff happening to you during your shift, or you're getting extra duty, or, you're not getting that promotion anymore. People see you differently. And I think the most important thing where I talk about from my experience is the lack of knowledge. I think people really need to educate themselves on what really matters and what doesn't. There are some people who got into accidents and don't even tell their commander, just say, I don't want to leave the military. It's okay. And there's options. That doesn't necessarily happen so quick, but because new sailors have so much lack of knowledge that they'll listen to anybody, and not everyone knows the right thing too, like people always will find ways to say things that are incorrect. And you can't go, everyone knows in the military, everything is written down. Everything's in a manual. There are ways to do everything, and people don't realize that. And I think that just because a master chief tells you something, that person is not better than you, that they're just on the same level as a seaman. Granted, they have their experience and they've been through things, and that's okay, but it doesn't give them a right to belittle people or to say that there are, above the law, I guess, in the military world. And I think that would have helped me out drastically had I known that. I would have made a better decision and probably would have got healthier and seek the help that I needed sooner, rather than getting to the point where I'm going to check myself in or overdose if I don't get to talk to anybody.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And that's a really, really good suggestion, and something that I never thought of. Not something, unfortunately, that I see the military implementing anytime soon, but having an advocate. And I know for LIMDU, they have like the patient advocates, and like for certain things, they have certain advocates. I don't know that I necessarily agree with every system and the way it's set up, but this concept of educating yourself, knowing everything. And it's so overwhelming joining the military and already feeling like boot camp alone, you're flooded with so much knowledge. And then 8th school, you're flooded with so much knowledge. And like the idea of, where do I start? What do I learn? I don't know what to educate myself on until it happens. And then you're overwhelmed with the situation, but no one's educating our junior enlisted. I don't know much about the officer side. I'm sure it's similar on that side, but no one's out there telling the junior enlisted, like, hey, these are things that you need to know. But imagine what better leaders we would have in the military if we started educating in the lower ranks, because I think we create these horrible leaders because they don't know, and we don't know what we don't know. And so that's a really good suggestion. There's a million ways that I could go and ask you questions with your story because there's so much, but I think you did such an amazing job articulating your story. I actually just want to close off with one question, and I've never done this before. So if you're not comfortable answering it, then please don't feel obligated to. But if you were to go back and talk to those people who treated you horribly when you were in the Navy, and you could say anything to them, what would you say?
I think that's a phenomenal question, and I would love nothing more to answer that, because I think in order for us to find peace is to be able to think of that type of way, and if I was able to go back and talk to, that medical officer or the sailor that was the one that was responsible for it all, or the command that kept fighting for me to go back for not my best of interests, I think I would have told them, if I was to go back and they were sitting right in front of me, I think each individual have a different conversation, but I think that I would let them know that, we are people too, and we're not robots, and that we're just as human as they are. And I think that they need to take the time to say that if I was in that person's shoes, how would have I felt? I think we're all not perfect. I don't know how much an effect it took on the person who actually caused the whole thing to happen, or the chief that had this person's life change forever on his watch, or a medical officer that's being pushed from someone higher than him to be able to fill in that number, and, that gets put on him when the sailor leaves the ship. It's because everybody has their own personal agenda, and there's a reason why they do what they do. And I don't hate them for it, but I think that everything is temporarily. You're never in the military forever. You're never wearing that uniform forever. But I think the impact you make on people's lives is forever. And I think legacy is important, to know that what of a difference I could have made in that individual's life, and how did I as an individual impact that, and what does that mean to me? I'm somebody's daughter, I'm somebody's mother, I'm somebody's sister. And I think humanizing the way our leaders are today will definitely impact our future leaders of what would that look like down the road. And I will tell them that I don't hate the fact of where I ended up because of you, because I'm living a more purposeful life. And I think that leading the life that they're leading, I'm not judging them by all means, but being able to think differently will help people be more successful in the military.
I couldn't agree more. And I love that. I think that that's such a peaceful perspective to put it in, because you could go either way. You could live a life of anger, or you could live a life of peace. And it's so important, that humanizing aspect. Keep coming back to that in just about every episode that I do, just treating people like human beings. And I love the way you put that. So thank you for sharing. Where can people find you in Jacksonville that want to be part of what you're doing in the dance world these days?
Yeah, so if you want to find a great outlet, be surrounded by veterans, active duties. We have military wives and husbands. We are just surrounded by a melting pot of diversity here in Jacksonville. So being able to find that support, whether it be through dance, whether you need to rip my ear off with some stories, you can find us on Phillips Highway. If you're familiar with Avenues Mall, we're about 2 minutes of a drive going south from there. We're 1103 Phillips Highway. We're Unit 5. You can definitely find us there. It says Diva Dance Jacksonville. You don't need to sign up. If you want to come on in and just say hello and support, I'm all for that. You can look us up on our website, divadancejacksonville.com. Definitely check us out, see more of what we do. We definitely have a lot of information on the gram. Go ahead and go check that out as well. We have so many different stories, people changing lives through our doors. And that's always great to hear. I'm always wanting to hear people's different walks of life and how we could be assistance, whether it be through dance, whether it be through a happy hour, or whether it just be, girl, I need some information on my cheat sheet. I need a brag sheet information, okay? I need brag sheet. We'd love to do that as well. We have volunteer events if you're wanting to get part of that. Also, big shout out to, there's another person that I work closely with, Hope for Veterans. If you don't know who they are, they're a nonprofit organization that help veterans, specifically women, get started with their life outside the military. Definitely go check them out. We work closely with them. She's phenomenal. She helps so many people out getting started, providing them with the supplies and materials that they need as well. So we work closely with them to make sure that our veterans and active duty people are just taken care of.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all that. And I will make sure to link all the information in the description box below for anyone who wants to check out the amazing things that Jasmine is doing and the organization Hope for Veterans that she is working alongside. And hopefully a lot of people take advantage of that. If I lived closer, I would, but I'm on the opposite coast. So, but if I'm ever in the area, I will 100% make sure to stop by, because I truly love your mission and I love what drives your mission. And I'd love to support in any way I can. Jasmine, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story. It's incredible. And I think that you truly are changing lives with what you do. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen in today. Each week, I'll be bringing you value in the mental health space and its direct impact on service members and veterans. If you feel you personally got value today from this episode, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a 5-star rating and review and share this to your audience. Until next time, remember, your story matters, your mental health matters, and your story doesn't end here.